So, guys, do you want to just quickly introduce yourselves first of all? Should we start with you, Rob?
I'm an author. I've sort of been written a book about the digital workforce, which is really about robotic process automation and how that links with operating models, business models, and particularly around processes. My background is I've worked in a variety of different roles. I started off very much in technology, also involved in technology M&A as part of the organisation I worked for. Before sort of almost going over to the dark side and switching from technology across to the business and started looking at sort of lean and process and organisation. And along the way, sort of run into this new technology called robotic process automation, which at the time was, so let's go back 5 or 6 years, which at the time was like, this is incredible, this is going to change the world tomorrow, because when you're looking at processes, you're always looking at what are the opportunities to automate, cost takeout, the efficiencies. And of course, it didn't change the world tomorrow. Here we are 5 years later, and it's still pretty new and pretty young. And that's really what led to sort of writing the book, which was actually automation is for everyone, whatever size of organisation. The barriers have really dropped. And actually, you know, there's no area that can't take advantage of automation, and that includes a variety of different tools, which we'll hopefully get into later on. And so I think, you know, for today, I'm really interested because I think it's going to put together two worlds. It's my new world of automation and my old world of M&A. We'll sort of see what clashes in the middle.
Perfect. Tom?
So, Tom Allen, Head of M&A and Corp Dev at Modaxo. So, for those of you who have not heard of Modaxo before, we're software for mergers and acquisitions. So, cloud software, and customers across the world use us for end-to-end. So, deal origination through to due diligence, post-merger integration, divestments, IPO to the London Stock Exchange, etc. PEs as well. So we started life as with a real kind of focus on M&A, but more and more we're kind of branching out to become a more holistic project management platform really. So our customers are using us for a lot of the processes that often kind of run parallel to M&A. So legal contract review, managing patents and IP that kind of come with an acquisition, etc. So really interesting space to operate in at the moment. Prior to life at Modaxo, I was working as an M&A advisor. So started life at PwC, chartered accountancy, and then moved into a number of M&A boutiques. So a lot of the kind of problems and pains that our kind of customers start out with prior to using our software, I've kind of experienced firsthand. So the working in silos, across Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, project management from different tools. So yeah, it's been really interesting to kind of put the kind of old experience and bring it into the.
Thanks, Tom. Matt's from Google. I won't forget that.
I work as a product lead for M&A, but it doesn't stand for mergers and acquisitions. It actually stands for measurement and attribution. It's slightly different, actually completely different. And what's a product lead? Well, it's really a glorified product manager. So across Europe, and essentially we make products in California, if you don't know that, and we bring them out in Europe, and hopefully it sticks here. The Germans love it as much as the Americans do. Make sure that flies. Within our massive products string, I work on the ads side of our business, so measurement and attribution as it relates to ads. And by virtue, I'm actually an engineer too. I started in PwC, just to give a heads out.
We all did.
Everyone has.
Everyone
has started at PwC.
It's
a revolving door. So now being an engineer, and to be honest, like I've worked in Google for around 4.5 years, very much on the technology side. Started in the New York office, now in London, and before that also on the tech firm side. So worked at companies like SAP on the product side. And I guess the part where I wanted to talk a little bit about was what's the inside out perspective, right? So when you're on on the inner side of a company which goes out and acquires a new product, and you're supposed to just integrate. How fun is that journey? And what are the challenges and what are the learnings we've had? So I'll probably try and speak from my perspective. I'm sure there's a macro version out there.
Thank you very much, and welcome to you all. And obviously, as I think you'll agree, ladies and gentlemen, we've got some real experts here. So the first discussion point I thought we could start with is about methodology and tools that the guys apply. And how does that actually leverage, for example, improvements, say, either to the M&A cycle or delivering a more accurate or de-risking the end product? Should we start with you, Rob? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I think, so as I say, I'm coming at this from a slightly more academic perspective, but sort of having been involved in mergers and acquisitions and now seeing what the RPA and automation market more generally is about, I think there are three key areas that really sort of come to mind. The first, I think, is there are a lot of tools out there now that do process mining that you can simply put onto desktops and actually understand what's going on in the business. And the amount of data that can generate very quickly to provide insights into organisations can be really, really helpful. I then think there's the classic, I'll call it the classic robotic process automation, the ability to automate tasks. And I think one thing that I often talk about when I talk about robotic process automation is it's actually more about integration than it is automation. It's a technology that lets you glue together lots of separate systems and to operate them as one single process. I think for M&A in particular, I think it's that element of RPA that particularly stands out as a big opportunity. And then I'm sure we'll get into this a little bit more later on, but actually then the third element is the artificial intelligence and the opportunities there. And one of the things you're seeing now is, I'll use the term, it's almost a commoditization of artificial intelligence. It used to be you had to go and hire a whole bunch of data scientists to be able to take advantage of these tools. No longer is that the case. Someone's already worked all this out, and you can actually sort of buy some of these technologies off the shelf just to do what you need to do. And I think that's opening the doorway to lots and lots of opportunities. So they're the three things I see.
Tom, what about you? Modaxo, what sort of methodologies are being applied? Is that changing regularly as the market and the environment changes?
I suppose I would be speaking, I suppose, on behalf of our customers, but having worked in the old or analog way, if you want to call it that, pre-tools. So I think efficiency is a big one. So if you think of the M&A process, typically very time pressured, a lot of moving parts, a lot of individuals, a lot of documents, data, and you're really up against it. You've got to get a deal completion by whatever date has been set. So efficiency, that can be just, it can be as simple as preventing duplication of effort. So having all documents stored in a central platform or place, really, really simple things that when you can bolt them all together, you get these massive efficiency gains across a deal. We're talking 50% that our customers have reported for due diligence, shaving 50% off the time it takes to conduct DD, 40% off the number of days to conduct PMI. And secondly, I think transparency as well. So I think many M&A teams can work in a siloed way. So you might have corp dev, maybe bring in an advisor to handle the DD, and then pass off to integration. And if you work in that siloed manner, I think it can often you can encounter the risk of the integration team don't really know what they're going to be integrating on until it's almost too late. Whereas if you connect the dots between corp dev strategy all the way through to integration, maybe integration team can have a seat at the table and say, actually no, we can't acquire that target because we've tried to do an emerging market deal before and it hasn't worked. And so, yeah, transparency and efficiency.
Great. Max, what about you?
From my perspective, the piece where I feel something better can happen is more about finding or acquiring companies, integrating them within your workflow with the mindset of human capital as well as employee culture. Because you might find the right technology, you might have the best product in terms of integration and expansion and market trends. But at the end of the day, it's run by a group of people who will now become part of a completely different culture and way of organizing. And will they actually survive in this new space? I think that's one area where I feel like we've become a little bit more cognizant about, just trying to make sure we integrate better.
Okay. And Tom, in terms of obviously going through an M&A activity, what sort of things are you finding that if you're picking up activities maybe which are after individuals have started the process, what areas are other organisations perhaps missing that you've actually gone with your insight and been able to pick up, as I say, drive out towards a far better end product than maybe would have been had Meduxo not been involved?
So one thing we find a lot across customers and just many of the M&A teams that we speak to across the world is lack of a, suppose, kind of systematic and repeatable way of running a deal. So if you kind of think, typical deal, of course, there's always going to be the nuances and individual quirks. But I mean, I think a lot of M&A is quite formulaic, in terms of the kind of process that you go through. And a lot of teams that we speak to, they kind of know what they're doing, but they've never kind of documented things. So having everything documented in a playbook essentially is really, really important. And you could have a playbook for if you're doing consolidation in a certain sector, but then if you're doing something a little bit more niche, such as corporate venture capital or something like that, if you have a kind of playbook set up for all of your different projects, it means that you've got a workflow, you can be systematic, and kind of work through those stage gates and kind of really ensure that no stone goes unturned when it comes to DD and integration.
So you're saying having that operational organisational playbook is absolutely key, fundamental foundation data to a successful M&A activity?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Matt, what are your thoughts on that? Things that possibly get missed?
Yeah,
not from you, I have to.
Yeah, I know. I'm wondering what I missed. But I really like the idea of having a playbook and actually making it extremely transparent down the chain, because a lot of, I think a lot of due diligence happens at various levels, but not down to the execution level. I think that's number one. Also, I guess where it could be really good is to give a vision to the new team that's coming on board of where they need to belong.
Right, yeah.
Because what I also see is you get a great amount of talent, but they disintegrate in an even wider company that you are, and there are tons of different products and various areas to work on. The core gets missed. So I guess that transparency might be really helpful if you build a playbook, let it go down all the way to the execution level.
All right, about you, Rob, from your experience in the past.
Yeah, I mean, I got my M&A experience with General Electric, and they wrote the playbook on one playbook. So yeah, I mean, they literally did have everything down to a sort of repeatable process, and I think that was the Lean and the Six Sigma, or particularly the Six Sigma element to the organisation, and it was a sort of, I worked there during the sort of late 90s, early 2000s. It was a machine, just chunked through these organisations, and yeah, it had to have a consistent, repeatable process. But I look back at it now, God, it was manual. You spend so many days in dusty, quiet rooms with folders worth of data. You can press the button and get all the answers to that.
And was transparency key to success again in General Electric at that time? Would you say?
Oh, it was, but then. I look at what
from stakeholders,
Well, I look at what we thought was transparency at the time. I look at what's possible now, and they're two completely different things, because you just didn't have the time and the assessment to really get into all of that data to the level you can today. So we thought so, yes, but in hindsight, it was the best you could do at the time.
Yeah, great. In terms of trends, now we've already spoken about some of the technologies which are coming through, and obviously AI is a huge a banner covering a huge range of different areas. We've spoken about RPA at the moment. But what I'm interested in hearing about from you guys is, in terms of the latest tools, the latest technologies, disruptive technologies, where are you seeing them being used? Are they mature enough to help with M&A activity right now? Do you think they will be in the future? Matt, should we start with you? What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. To be honest, as our company's vision, if you dial back 2 or 3 years, it used to be, let's become mobile first.
Yeah.
Let's put everything on a mobile device. Let's make sure that the device works as good as a desktop, and let's give people good experiences. Now it's AI first. So if you dial back a few more years, like we didn't have that strategy in place. We now have a team of company that actually works on AI and bringing that to all of our products. So it's really core of our products. I don't see us even expanding further because now it's a core. But if you're a technology firm who hasn't gone too deep into it, spend enough time in investing in it, it's definitely an area to build out. And if you can branch out and acquire a company or a company that's doing that kind of interesting work, yeah, go for it. The other areas, at least from a Google standpoint, is augmented reality. We actually take some stuff from the digital world, put it in the augmented reality world. And is that something we can create consumer products around that are sustainable?
How does that work? Give us a little flavour exactly how that does work.
How does that work?
Yeah, augmented reality.
Well, I can give you a demo on the spot if you put me, but I guess we're trying to create this new Google Lens. Have you guys worked on that, right? So if you're using Google Assistant, you can actually just squeeze your phone now. If you're using an Android, it'll pop up an Assistant. You'll have a little lens logo, click on the lens, and you can take a picture of anything, and it will basically run an AI algorithm on the back end and pattern match anything you put. So if you see a suit that you like, it can find you online where you can buy it, what the brand it is. If you see a flower that you don't know what it is, you can even pattern match it. So that's one area, but how about putting that in store? So when you're walking down and you see someone's amazing suit and you want to buy it, you know exactly which store location you can pop in and buy the same product. So those are some of the areas we're looking at. And then if you might not want to even go to a store, can you give you the entire experience on a device? So put on a headset and you're in the Toys R Us store, for example. So I think those are some areas, but that's a really good way for us to expand. And I see a lot of new things coming from education to retail to just ads in general.
And Rob, obviously you said about 5 years, but it's like a lot of new technology. There's the hype, that takes quite a while. It's the same in cloud, that took many years, and suddenly there's a tipping point and everybody's suddenly going cloud first. What's your view around RPA, for example? Again, is that an M&A enabler? Do you see that actually coming to the fore in the next few years, or again, has it sort of reached the peak of its hype cycle and it's now on a downward trend?
No, I think it's very early in that cycle. I think, I think the core businesses of RPA were definitely sort of big financial institutions and banks, and they were able to start looking at sort of their processes. Now I think what we're starting to see is lots of other functions starting to realise that they can take advantage of these technologies. So I think M&A and internal audit, funny enough, I think are two that are sort of starting to emerge, that are realising that actually these tools are really quite mature and they can use them. The tools are mature, but the use of them isn't. So you mentioned methodology,
Yeah.
and I think so they're very, very capable. They've sort of earned their chops, if you like, in other industries, and now there is a real opportunity for organisations to take advantage of that. I think it's another 18 months, probably.
Interesting.
I think that's probably. I mean,
Put that down in the diary.
and I thought, bearing in mind, I thought it was going to change the world tomorrow. Maybe that 18 months could be 10. But I do, I've learned my lesson.
You're
I think
optimist.
18 months. Yeah.
What about you, Tom? What thoughts have you got around disruptive technology?
Yeah, I mean,
so obviously you're a software company, you must be on leading edge.
Yeah, I would agree with your comment that it is relatively early days, really. I mean, we as a company, we were established 2011, but it was only really kind of 2015 onwards that we've really kind of gone to market. And, a lot of M&A teams across the world, they're still kind of working with the traditional approach, Excel, PowerPoint and project management from the inbox. And, that it gets the job done, but we're kind of seeing that there is definitely a better way. In terms of kind of RPA, we've got two of the big four partnered with us, and they're using kind of RPA to automate a lot of their M&A and integration reports. So literally one click, and you've got an integration binder sitting ready to report on. So there's massive gains to be had, but I think a lot of companies are maybe not aware that their technology is there as an enabler when it comes to M&A.
I'm also interested whether there's any distinction between geography or industry. That's perhaps a sort of like question rather than going down the panel. Any views? Is it types of organisation which are going maybe more advanced in this sort of process? Are they roughly at the same sort of level? Is it region? Any thoughts on that, anyone?
I guess outside of M&A, I think the UK is often perceived as slightly ahead of the curve. But there is a but in it. But I think that is purely because the banking crisis. I think a lot of the large banks and financial institutions really sort of took to this early on, so 5 or 6 years ago, and that's sort of they alone sort of pulled us forward. I think if you chop that out of the equation, we'd be just the same as everyone else. Everyone else, they are still just finding their way.
Guys, you agree with that?
Yeah, I think just to add to the point, I think UK definitely is very advanced, but it's also probably the more mature markets, including US, and probably the problem of any mature market is you have a lot of regulations and you have a lot of handicaps that don't allow you to innovate. And I think the part where I realized this was last year I went to Kenya for talking about Google products to our customers, and I realized no one there was using money. They didn't even have a bank account, but they were using their phones, using an app called M-Peso, and everyone's making transactions through their cell phones. And I just realized their cashless economy running perfectly without even a banking support in the background. Can we technically launch that here in UK? Yeah. But are we allowed to? Probably not, right? So it's very interesting, and I think it's a very important dimension on the M&A front. Is the company that you're looking at, prospects, are they in the right geo? Are they too advanced for the geo they're in? To the fact that you can't really import those technologies in or that product, and maybe they're better there, but it's an interesting dimension there.
Tom, what are your thoughts? You have a good wide range of view, I'm sure, of what's happening.
I think probably the most kind of obvious trend for me is no kind of particular geographic focus, but just the fact, companies across the world are still playing catch up when it comes to technology and digitalisation, so kind of using M&A as a means to do so. And we see that in the UK, across Europe, but across the Americas as well, and into APAC. So that seems to be very much still kind of hot topic at the moment.
Okay. Excellent. And I think the point that Rob was talking about, the people and the culture, and as usual, it's not just about technology, it's about culture, it's about degree of enrolment, and you mentioned obviously in terms of your book as well around the digital workplace. What are your thoughts around the skills and how the organisations and that culture, that HR side, if you like, has to change to keep pace with the way possibly new technology is going to accelerate M&A down an automated process? What are your thoughts around that? I'm sure it's all in your book in detail.
Absolutely. I think Derek, am I allowed to mention the dreaded B word? There's
what the B stands
Brexit. Yeah. I think things are really difficult at the moment, and I do think it's sort of relatively Brexit related in the UK, and that is that there is quite a skills gap that actually. People are moving around less. There is a critical need for some of these skills, particularly around automation, AI, process mining, and even cloud. Pretty much all of those skills. And it's quite hard to get people trained up, and then organisations looking at people for 5 years of experience, which just doesn't exist. So we seem to have sort of created this roadblock of our own making in the UK at the moment. Clearly there's a need, clearly there's a solution, but it's at a little bit of an impasse. But yeah, there are some crucial skills. I don't think it's necessarily, as people were making out a few years ago, this would be interesting, I don't think it's necessarily data scientists, because I think for businesses, you just buy these commodities. But I do think it's the more business process specialists, the people who can utilise these tools and actually really put them into force. It's not about technologists, it's about people, hybrid people, who can look at processes and technology together.
And Tom, do you think you'll be replaced by an algorithm anytime soon?
Very much hope not. I think kind of, to expand on your point, I think there's often a case of, companies want to change and they know they need to change and kind of embrace technology and go digital, but maybe there's some kind of inertia when it comes to the change management piece that, sits in front of them. It can be a little bit scary maybe for some if you've been working in a particular way for many years. So I think, there's the technology is there. It needs to be enabled within the company, and only leaders can do that. There has to be the desire from the top, and that has to kind of feed through amongst teams, I think.
Okay. Matt, what's your view?
Yeah, I honestly feel I'm in the video game theory. We all of us are. We are really not humans, but I think it's a big challenge, and especially when it comes to robotics and process engineering. I agree with you. There's a lot of buzz in the neighborhood. Very few people know exactly how to work on it, and then the other element is you won't find them inside the company. So you have to go out and reach out and work with consultants and hopefully trust them to get access to your critical business systems. And I think as Google, we've been doing that as well. I've seen us opening up way more in the last 1 or 2 years versus before, where we were just focused on technology and what new can we do. Now it's more about how can we do that more efficiently. So things have changed slightly.